You are not broke financially. I know it feels like you are. You probably think I'm crazy. You might be saying, you don't know me. How do you know that? But hear me out. You are not broke. Your money just keeps disappearing. Here's what I mean. Imagine this is your life. This is what you put all of your resources into. You put your money into it, and you pour it in, and you pour it in. That works just fine. That's just fine, unless you have a hole in the bottom of it, and it just keeps flowing out. If that's the case, it doesn't matter how much you pour in. It will never fill up to the brim. You have a hole in your finances. You have a drain. It's not that you're broke. It's that your money keeps disappearing. What's happening to it? Well, let me tell you. I'm not going to tell you from my own words. I'm going to tell you from Jesus' words. This is what Jesus says to us here in Matthew chapter 6, verse 19. Jesus says, "Stop collecting treasures for your own benefit on earth, where moth and rust eat them, where thieves break in and steal them." In other words, don't collect treasures when you have a hole in the jar. When you have a hole in the jar, it doesn't matter how much you collect. It'll always be empty. Some of us, we have a hole in our jar. Some of us, as Jesus says, we have a moth. Your moth might be named white chocolate mocha. You go out and get it several times a week, and as you do, it just drains the finances away. Some of you have rust in your life called buy now, pay later, where you buy things with money that you don't have to create stress for yourself in the future. And whether it's a credit card or the store covers it, or they say, don't worry, we have 0% APR for how long? You're buying stuff with money that you don't have. Some of us have a thief in our life called monthly subscription service, where they're charging us month after month after month, whatever it is, whether it's Netflix or Amazon Prime or Hulu or Disney Plus, or maybe this is your cell phone plan. Some of us have a drain. Some of us have a drain called car payment. And money just keeps flowing out of it month after month after month. And it's funny, a lot of these payments, a lot of these drains, they go back to this idea of buy now, pay later. That car that we couldn't afford then, and so we bought more car than we could afford instead of fixing the one we could. And so then it keeps draining out month after month. It's like our cell phone plan, where they say, here's a free phone, we'll charge you for it later, month after month after month, and we collect interest. You know, the company always wins. Can you locate the drain in your finances? Can you locate it? Can you see where that drain is? That thing that when you go into the grocery store, you buy every time. You go through the store and you always pick up your box of, and you know what it is for you, and you buy it even though you have food going bad in your pantry, in your refrigerator, in your freezer. You have things that are stacked so deeply in those places that you can't find them before they go bad and you have to throw them out. Things are getting freezer burnt in your freezer because you've stockpiled so much. You have a propensity, can you name it, to buying everything you want. And I don't know you. I don't know for sure this is what's going on for you, but I know it's happening for a lot of us. This desire to have the very best of everything instead of just good enough. Or for someone else, it's that desire to replace something when it could have been repaired. But you have a superpower. You have a superpower, and here's what it is. God gave you this superpower. You have the authority to tell your money where to go. You have that superpower. Every dollar. You have the power to close the drain. It happens by prioritizing, by deciding what's really important. But what happens when we don't prioritize? What happens when we don't prioritize? It all just drains out. But when we do, you may have seen this illustration that's been said of big rocks. Someone comes up, they have this jar, and they put big rocks in a jar, right? And as they're putting the big rocks into the jar, They ask the question when it's all filled up with big rocks. They say, is the jar full? If there's an audience, they say, yes, it's full. And then the person who's doing the demonstration, they put smaller rocks or pebbles into the jar. They fill it up. They fill it up all the way to the brim. And they say, now is it full? And now people are a little more hesitant. And some people still shout and say, yeah, it's full. And then the person doing the demonstration adds tiny little pebbles or sand and fills it up to the very top until it's completely full. And now is it full? You see where this is going, right? What's really important? What are the big rocks? The big rocks represent the things that are most important. Here's how Jesus describes them. He says in Matthew 6:20, instead, collect treasures for yourself in heaven, where moth and rust don't eat them, where thieves don't break in and steal them. Big rocks, the most important things. Collect treasures for yourself in heaven. The big rocks are the eternal things. Things like relationships. And caring, really caring for the people that have been entrusted to you. Because, people have been entrusted to you. God's entrusted certain people into your care. Caring for them. That's a big rock. Fill your jar with it. God's purposes for you. To be part of God's mission of transforming the world. God has a purpose to make things better and to live a generous life. These big rocks are the kinds of things that we'd get to the end of our life and we want people to say about us. They probably won't say, oh, he had such a nice car. Oh, she had such beautiful clothes. And if that's all that they have to say, then we know our life had a hole in it that it was missing. We want people to say, oh, how this person loved. Look at their generosity. We put in these big rocks, these most important things, right? We put those in first, and then what do? We put in the medium rocks. What are the medium rocks? Those are those basic needs that need to be met. Our basic needs of food and water and shelter. But we're not talking about, hey, whoever you buy in your grocery bill is fine. No, medium rocks. Hey, that's the basics. What do you really need? What do you really need to be healthy, to thrive? What do you need for water? What do you need for shelter? Communication. I don't know what you can really make in today's world without some kind of communication plan. So basic cell service, basic internet package, whatever that might be. Basic clothes, basic transportation. And then after that, there's still room for the little rocks, for the sand, the pebbles, for those snacks, for those toys. And let's be honest, we're not just talking about kid toys. Grown-ups, we have toys. We have our special technology, the latest and the greatest. There's these little devices and gizmos, the Black Friday shopping, and the trips. Those are little rocks, those trips. The upgrades to our transportation, getting the nice car, getting the hybrid car, getting the subscription service. Now, all these Disney Plus, Hulu, you name it. Getting that extra cell phone package. And our fashion. The little rocks. The little sand. And the lesson of the big rocks in the jar is not that if you put them in the right order, everything will fit. I used to believe that. I used to think, I just got to put them in the right order and squeeze them in right. There's all these time management hacks. If you squeeze them in, they'll all fit. Here's why I learned. It won't all fit. You can't squeeze everything into your life that you might want to. You are finite. You are limited. It will not all fit. Your life will get filled to the brim no matter what order you put things in. And even at the end, you might say, oh, I wish I could squeeze that into. The lesson of the big rocks is this. If you don't put the big rocks in first, the big rocks will never fit. Don't store up treasures on earth where the rust and moth will destroy them. Thieves will break in and steal them. You'll have a hole in your jar. Store up the eternal kinds of treasures. Store up treasures in heaven. And here's why. Here's why it matters so much. Jesus tells us in verse 21, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. When we talk about money, it's a spiritual thing. It's a spiritual thing about where your heart is. And today's the day. Today's the day that you get to close the drain. You get to make your choice. You get to make your decision and say, these are drains and it's leaking out. Close the drain, but as you do, don't merely fill your life with empty trinkets. If you want to know where your heart is, here's a challenge. Do a purge of your house. First, read a book on minimalism. There's 1,000 good ones. You can get them online for free through the library just to listen to an audiobook. Read a book on minimalism. And then go through your house, room by room, and purge. Purge. Really go through it. Eliminate things. And when you do, you will discover where your heart is, where your heart has been. The things you were hoping would bring you happiness, the things you bought out of your stress, anxiety, the things that got cast aside because they didn't fill that hole inside. And I'll inspire you to close the drain. But don't simply fill your life with more empty trinkets. Instead, put the big rocks in first. Live the life that you would be proud to live. Live a life that reflects the character of God's love in this world. Live boldly. Live generously. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also.
Hey, this is Ashley from Grace Ottumwa. I'm praying you had a meaningful encounter with Jesus during this message. If this message impacted you in a positive way, we'd love to hear about it in our Facebook group, Grace Ottumwa Church Online. You can support Grace by subscribing to Grace Ottumwa's YouTube channel. If you'd like to support Grace Ottumwa's mission, you can give online at graceottumwa.org/give.